Scarlett Johansson is currently doing press for the next installment of Jurassic World, and none of the interviews have anything to do with Jurassic World. They're all about how hard it is to be a woman in Hollywood. Shocker. And she has a long history of complaining about this shit. I actually went through several years of headlines before we get to the current one. This was just a month ago. Scarlett Johansson was offered sex object roles for years after Lost in Translation. She also recalls in 2022 being hypersexualized as a young actress. People thought I was much older than I was. Scarlett Johansson talks being groomed in Hollywood for bombshell roles. And the latest is from an interview with The Times of London, where she says she was cast for her desirability, and now, thankfully, the male gaze no longer dominates the industry, so she can do artsy-fartsy roles like Marriage Story.
That must be why all the movies are failing.
I was talking to you.
I was talking to you yesterday. I watched this, guys. If you don't know who there's a YouTuber, his name's Thorius Unlimited. He does great reviews, and he does this great, like the way he describes the scene in F1. He goes, here's a guy. He's attracted to a girl. Here's a girl. She's attracted to a guy. You know what they do? They have sex.
Yeah.
And the idea here was that, like, Hollywood, for all their posturing about the male gaze, is in a lot of ways on TV, it's like porn. And in the movies, it's like everything's sexless and sterilized because, God forbid, you show women being desirable because men might be attracted to it, and that's a bad thing. And in the movie, they don't show it, and it's done tastefully. But the point is they lean into the fact that it's a real thing. Men are attracted to women, women are attracted to men, but they turned her character into a real character. This lady is not just a sex object, but the point is that those roles are always going to exist. There will always be Sydney Sweeneys. They're going to be there forever, and even she, like we said earlier, is not just taking those types of roles. She is, however, having bathwater-infused soap.
Well,
sold.
yeah, look at the attention economy,
yes,
with Sydney Sweeney in particular. Nobody knows or cares about her role playing reality winner. Nobody knows or cares about her movie
that's
playing
still the
a
biggest.
nun.
I'm sorry. The fact that
Immaculate.
the fact that is a real person will always be
Yeah.
a psyop to me.
Yeah, I mean that was.
I remember when Luke was telling me
kinda
about
crazy.
reality winner.
Nominal
and I'm
determinism,
and I'm like,
at its finest.
No, something happened in 2012.
But yeah, nobody cares about Sydney Sweeney playing a nun in a horror movie called Immaculate. Nobody cares about her role in White Lotus. It's just not what gets the most attention. What gets attention is Anyone But You, or maybe even Madam Web, even though it sucked, or Euphoria. They don't, and then other than that, her SNL appearance.
I would be more
her brand deals.
I would have more respect for the artist who's like, I got offered these roles my whole life, and I turned them all down. Because it went against my principles to act in a sexualized manner. So I turned them down so that I could help change the culture in Hollywood. You can say that and write that article and then get a good review from us. You don't get to do all of that, capitalize, make millions of dollars on it, and then complain about the culture. You can have one or the other. You cannot have both.
I mean, if we're being real, ScarJo wouldn't be the actress she is today had she not taken the sex object roles. But she celebrates the variety of her career these days, now that she is an industry veteran. She recently directed her first feature called Eleanor the Great, which is about an elderly woman who fraudulently joins a Holocaust survivor support group.
I just love that. Like I'm picturing this. Remember what I said a couple weeks ago? I said Hollywood sucks now because there's no more cocaine in the executive offices. Nobody's ripping lines of coke when movies are getting greenlit, and that's why things suck.
This
now.
is also why people make jokes about how actresses looked before Harvey Weinstein got toppled and after. Because now we're being told that, like, Bella Ramsey is the leading woman of the 21st century. Such a varied career wasn't a given. After Lost in Translation, Scarlett Johansson was offered a string of generic rom-coms, such as He's Just Not That Into You in 2009, films where only sex appeal was required and which the actress has described as deeply unfulfilling. a lot of people have unfulfilling jobs. It's not that big of a
It's
deal.
literally part of life. Like,
You're not entitled to that.
The actual framing should be, what a privilege to be able to only, and this is something, to be fair, that is widespread in Hollywood, where they talk about, I just turn down the roles that I don't want. And that's fine, but you have to understand how that sounds to people who don't really have the opportunity to just decide whether they want a job that's fulfilling or not.
Right.
Like, that's rare.
It's a luxury.
That's a luxury. That's the definition of privilege. It's got nothing to do with your race, everything to do with your tax bracket and being able to hole up in a cottage for months preparing for a role.
Was that shade at Jenna Ortega?
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, I was also thinking of like Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
He's like, I just left and went to the woods for 3 years. Like, yes.
I'm only gonna do movies that speak to my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. If only everyone in society had the ability to do that. But nowadays, ScarJo says the industry has completely changed for the better. She says it's a different time for young women. The messaging is different. There are many role models. Women are visible in powerful positions, and the opportunities I've had to play women who don't have to just be one thing or another have increased. But when I was younger, a lot of roles I was offered or I went for had their ambitions or character arcs revolving around their own desirability or the male gaze or a male-centered story. That is less frequent, though. Something has shifted. So she's talking about how her roles around desirability don't pass the Bechdel test. It was in male-centered stories, if she's someone's love interest or something like that. She says, I just waited. I had to become comfortable with the idea that it could take time, which is hard when you're a young actor, but at the time I didn't have any children, so my responsibility was just to be productive, trying to maintain the momentum of my career and wait for things that felt right. And that is hard because there is an existential angst that comes with waiting, but I had to allow space for the creative process to do its thing. It was nerve-wracking. I'm in a business where you feel like at any moment you'll become irrelevant, but I think it pays off. I know it does. So I suppose she's saying she gets more varied roles these days because she has earned a tenure in Hollywood as an A-lister. And also thanks to the Me Too movement and thanks to a whole culture of intimacy coordinators. And weirdly, I would say now the problem isn't that there's not enough sex in movies. I think there's an overabundance of sex in movies with zero chemistry, and none of it is written as it realistically happens.
I think of it as TV shows and not movies. Like, I don't know what the movies are that are having this stuff in them, but it feels like in the age of streaming, back in the day that was relegated to HBO and Cinemax, and now when the age of streaming, everybody gets to be HBO and Cinemax, so they have to have their obligatory sex scenes in every show.
Well, they write those scenes about sex or dating or relationships, any dynamic between men and women now, in a way that's completely divorced from reality. They write women as basically just men in disguise, and they write men as women in disguise, and it's not something that people find relatable, and it's not something that they find aspirational or desirable. It just feels like a weird fan fiction where you gender swap everybody.
Yes. It reminds me of just the other week, we never ended up talking about it, but Danny Boyle talking about how he couldn't make Slumdog Millionaire now because they would have to hire a young upstart director from India to make Slumdog Millionaire. So you're only allowed to make art that's representative of your very niche. So I guess Danny Boyle's a zombie because he gets to make 28 Days Later. But the point being that you're not confined to art that is just the art that's representative of your own culture, but he's pulling the ladder up behind him, just like Scarlett Johansson is now pulling up the ladder behind her. Also, I was looking into the numbers, like the Hollywood box office between 2010 and 2015 averaged about $10 to $11 billion a year, whereas 2020 to 25 ranges from $2 billion to $9 billion with a wide range there.
Not even accounting for inflation?
This is they list COVID as the reason for this, but be that as it may.
I mean, that's one of many factors, but we know it's a cop-out. I just think it's tiresome. at this point. Like it's all you want to talk about is how objectified you are, as if you don't have a say in the matter.
You do. You cannot take the roles.
Like, I was just watching Candace Owens on a Jubilee debate with 20 feminists, and one of them said that women are less objectified in 2025 than they were in the 50s. In the age of, like, OnlyFans and TNA all over Instagram, and
is the idea that they get
plastic surgery at an all-time
so
high.
Is the idea that because they make the decision to do it themselves that they're not objectified because there isn't a corporation doing it for them? Because there still is. It's called
probably some excuse like that. Yeah. And it's just ridiculous because yes, women are objectively objectified more than they've ever been, but there is a height of discussion about the same objectification constantly alongside it. So it's like, clearly your stated preference is not your revealed preference. You claim to be so against objectification. Everyone in Hollywood preaches about this issue, and yet they are the ones responsible for pushing sex down everyone's throat.
Yep. And I mean, that's not even my issues with it, is the hypocrisy. My issue with it is the ladder pulling from Scarlett Johansson. If you want to change the culture, you better be willing to admit that you participated in the culture. You don't get to act on the moral high horse.
Well, to be fair to Scarlett Johansson, it's not like she's single-handedly taking any opportunities away from a Sydney Sweeney.
No, she's not.
In fact, if you look at Sydney Sweeney's career in detail, she is crafting it to have that luxury of choosing the roles that speak to her artistically. She's not that great of an actress, but she clearly cares about having a creative vision.
Pretend that it won't work all you want. Pretend that nobody cares. But the reason Michael Bay Transformers movies did as well as they did is the explosions in the cars, but also the Megan Fox of it all, and the
making
objectification
people work
of women.
12-hour days.
Yes. It was a different culture. It was a different time. And I would argue that there will be people with much fonder memories of the first Transformers movies than there will be of all of the garbage that's coming out today. Say what you want.
This Eleanor the Great.
Yes. Like, more people, like say what you want, but the speech at the end of the first Transformers movie was the day that America peaked as a country. It's been all downhill from there. And whatever this avant-garde bullshit that you're making, nobody cares about. Only art nerds care about it. It's for your own validation. It won't make the studio any money. And if it's Oscar bait, sure, fine. But don't expect the rest of us to care, because we don't.
Go off.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.